Sweet Tooth Volume 2 in Captivity, written and art by Lemire. Alright, Volume 2, we're going to learn more about Jeppard, his past in the pre-apocalyptic world and then the post-apocalyptic world, how his life changed, more about him and his background. We're going to learn what's in that duffel bag. We're going to see Gus in the militia facility and see what's going on down there. And we're going to fill in a lot of the gaps of the mysteries going on. So a really cool Volume 2. Let's dive into it. Volume 2 in Captivity. Issue 6 in Captivity, Part 1 of 6. Now we will learn more about Tommy Jeppard. Before the virus hit, Jeppard was a hockey player, a captain for the team in Minnesota. And as he got older, he didn't score as much anymore, but he was still a good fighter. He could throw down with the best of them. Jeppard, he was always a good fighter. It's just everything else in his life he wasn't so good at. Now we see Jeppard, after a particularly brutal hockey fight, being thrown out of the game. A guy in the crowd yelling at Jeppard as Jeppard leaves the ice says to him, "You're a bum, Jeppard! You're washed up! It's over!" Jeppard, sitting in the locker room, looks defeated after that game. He has that same defeated look in his eyes now in the present day after abandoning Gus for that mysterious duffel bag. We see Jeppard, he is riding a horse in the rain as Jeppard leaves the preserve camp where Gus is now imprisoned at. We see Gus in the holding area where they threw him in. Abbott, he's looking at Gus and still can't believe that Gus is supposedly 9 years old. Abbott tells his men to throw Gus in the barn with the others. They'll just have to see what Dr. Singh has to say about all this. Gus is dragged over to this barn, his handcuffs are removed, and he is thrown in. One of the men tells Gus to play nice. Now we see in this barn, there are 5 animal mutant children there as well. On the far left, there is some sort of horse child. In the middle is a donkey hybrid child named Buddy. In the front, on the far left, is a groundhog hybrid named Bobby. And there's some sort of rabbit child hybrid beside him. And then there is Wendy, the pig girl, on the far right. Gus asks the group of children, "What is this place?" Bobby the groundhog tells Gus, "Me, Bobby." And Gus introduces himself as well. "Bobby, I'm Gus." Bobby replies, "Me, Bobby, you am Gus?" And Gus says, "Yeah, that's right. Where'd you come from, Bobby? Is your mommy and daddy dead like mine?" And Bobby just repeats, "Me, Bobby, you am Gus?" Gus, realizing he's not really getting anywhere with Bobby, says, "Anyone else here can talk?" Wendy the pig begins talking, and she informs Gus that it ain't no use talking to the rest of them. They're all ignorant. They're more animal than people. They can't talk, except for Bobby, a little bit. Gus asks, "What is this place? It ain't the preserve, is it?" And Wendy informs Gus that the preserve is just a fairy tale animal kids' parents tell them it ain't real. This is a militia camp. The people here used to be in the government and the army before everyone died. And Gus asks, "What are they gonna do to us?" And Wendy answers, "Soon they're gonna come back and take us away. And when they take you away, you don't never come back." So Gus is definitely a little bit scared. We check in on Tommy Jeppard. We see him stop by a stream to get some water. We also see that mysterious duffel bag behind him. Now we have a flashback of Jeppard continuing on from the night that he got kicked out of that hockey game. Jeppard, he returned home to his wife, Louise Jeppard. She is watching TV. Louise tells Jeppard that something is happening on the news. They are reporting that people are getting sick and hospitals are overrun and quarantines have been put in place and the army has been called in. Louise says that she is scared. Jeppard hugs his wife and tries to reassure her that he ain't gonna let anything bad happen to her. Eventually, after some time passed, they were forced to leave their home. Louise really didn't want to, but Jeppard tells her that the TV said that they're setting up safe zones in Chicago and they can't stay here. They're gonna run out of food soon and all the doctors are gonna be there at the safe zones. Louise argues, but we ain't sick yet and there ain't gonna be no one around to get us sick. Everyone else is leaving. Jeppard counter-argues that they don't even know how the virus spreads. It could be in the air or the water. Louise tells Jeppard, "This is our home, Tommy. I don't want to leave it." Jeppard tells his wife, "Louise, we'll be back." Louise, crying, says, "I don't think we're ever coming back, Tommy." Jeppard promises his wife, saying, "I promise, baby, no matter what, when this is all over, I'll bring you home." And bring her home he did. We see, now in the current day, Jeppard riding his horse pulls up to his old family home that he shared with his wife. He carries that duffel bag on his shoulder, unzips the bag. He has tears in his eyes. He opens the duffel bag, and it is revealed to be the dead remains of his wife. And Jeppard says to himself, I promised, no matter what, I'd bring you home, Louise." So the military at the preserve had the dead remains of Jeppard's wife, and Jeppard had to trade them a mutant hybrid child in exchange for his wife's remains, so that way he could bury his wife properly and fulfill his promise to bring her home, no matter what. Issue 7 in Captivity, Part 2. We learn how Jeppard met his wife, Louise. Louise was a young, pretty smart girl into arts. She's from New York City, but she came to Minnesota because her grandma got sick, and Louise stayed with her grandma for a while. Now, Jeppard's brother, Wayne, he used to work the property for Louise's grandma, and Jeppard, he would help out his brother on the hockey off-season on the farm. And that is how Jeppard came to meet Louise, working on Louise's grandmother's farm. Before long, the two of them were inseparable. Eventually, Louise's grandma died, and Louise's grandma's house became their house together, the two of them. Jeppard comments that before the plague, he wasn't much of anything, but after the plague, he could do all the things others couldn't. He could fight, hide, kill, steal. He could survive at all costs, like a goddamn cockroach. In the present day, once again, we see Jeppard has dug a grave for his wife and buried her. He brought her home. His work is now done. He no longer has to keep on going. He no longer has to keep on living. He puts a gun in his mouth, and he tries to work up the courage to end his life, but he doesn't. Not yet. Back to Gus. He is talking to Wendy, the pig girl, and Wendy explains how bad men killed her mother and took her away from her mom and brought her here. She says that there used to be a lot of them kids here, so many you could barely move around. Some could talk, but most were feral. But every day the people come and they take a few more of us away. Gus, scared, says that they have to get out of here. Wendy tells Gus to be quiet, they're coming. Abbott enters the room with two soldiers. They are here to take some more of the kids away. Wendy yells at the soldiers, and Gus tries to defend Wendy and bites one of the men. Abbott yells at his men to control these children. Gus, he is being held by one of the men, and Gus tells Abbott that he's not scared of them. And Abbott replies, "You should be, freak," as they inject Gus in his neck with a needle, and Gus screams, "No!" Back over to Jeppard. Jeppard, he continues riding on. He remembers the time with his wife, when they were still alive, living through the plague times, that they were traveling, and it all just happened so fast. The government, the military, they just disappeared, collapsed. Radio, TV, and all that shit went down even faster. At first, Jeppard and Louise would connect with other survivors and form camps, but those soon turned into plague camps, and any spirit of community wasted away as soon as food became more scarce. They eventually decided that they wouldn't try to make friends out here in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. They would just go on their own way and stick to themselves. Now, back in the present day, Jeppard, he hasn't killed himself yet. He travels to a place called Factory Town, which Jeppard describes as the end of the world. This is where Jeppard wants to end it all. We jump back over to Gus. He is drugged and he is being wheeled through the laboratory at this facility. We see kennels of hybrid children and pregnant women hooked up to machines and autopsies being done on other hybrid children. Eventually, Gus is wheeled in to see Dr. Singh. The doctor is in charge of doing the experiments here in this preserve. He is in charge of trying to find some sort of cure and answers. Back over to Jeppard. Jeppard, he approaches the gates of this factory town. He is told he has to give something for entry into the town. Jeppard offers his horse, but it's not enough. They got plenty of horses, they don't need another one. So Jeppard offers his rifle as well. This is accepted. Jeppard, he is allowed to enter this factory town. Factory Town, in the post-plague world, was one of the military's first strongholds in the Midwest, until the military disappeared, of course. Now the leftovers turned into an armed trading camp. You want gas, guns, bullets? This is where you come. Jeppard, he walks down a skeevy alley up to a trading post selling liquor. Jeppard trades away his pistol and bullets for a nice big bottle of booze. Jeppard then finds himself an alley and begins drinking. He's going to drink away his pain and potentially kill himself this way. Jeppard then remembers a conversation he had with his wife. It was after the apocalypse. They had been traveling for months, maybe even years. Louise said to Jeppard, she just can't do this anymore, and she admits that she has a secret she has to tell Jeppard. Louise confessed to Jeppard that she was pregnant. Issue 8, In Captivity, Part 3. Picking up where last issue left off, still in the flashback, Louise is now a couple of months pregnant. She expresses her fears to Jeppard about all the stories she's heard about babies being born wrong since the plague. Jeppard asks her if she really believes all that nonsense, and Louise doesn't know, but she said others saw a little girl born with a tail and fur all over her. Jeppard laughs. Now we know that mutant animal hybrid children did end up being a thing in this world, but in the early days, Jeppard and Louise didn't see it for themselves, so they just didn't believe it. So Jeppard, joking around, trying to make his wife feel better, makes some shadow puppets of animals and says, "Hey look, it's our baby." The two of them actually share a laugh over this and have some fun making these shadow puppets on the wall with the light. Not believing, of course, that it was possible that their baby would turn out that way too. Louise tells Jeppard that she loves him, and Jeppard kisses his wife on the forehead and tells her that everything is going to be okay. Back in the current day, Jeppard, he finishes his big bottle of booze and then stumbles onward. Gus, he awakens once again, now in Mr. Singh's lab. Singh is talking to Gus and tells Gus to sit down. They have much to discuss. Gus, he sits down. He notices that he has been tagged on his ear. Singh apologizes but says the tagging's necessary. Singh asks Gus about his past, how he was brought here, who his father was, etc. Gus gives some short, evasive answers. He doesn't really want to tell Singh much of anything, but Singh tells Gus that they brought you to me so I could study you, cut you open and look inside you. I won't be doing that though, at least not if you help me, talk to me. I'm not a bad man, Gus. I'm just trying to stop everyone from getting sick. The government, the army, everything collapsed so quickly. This place, this is all that's left. We are the only semblance of order that's left in this world. And I know it's hard to understand, but the things we do here, we are humanity's last hope. Gus tells him, you cut up animal kids. I saw it. You think you're doing good, but you're just a sinner. The worst sinner. Dr. Singh admits that Gus is right. He did do some horrible things here, unforgivable things, but he confirms that they must keep trying. Soon we'll be gone, all of us. Gus replies, not me, not us animal kids. And Dr. Singh says, no, Gus, not you and the other hybrid children who were born after the plague. You don't get sick, just us. And you can help us, you see. The answers are in you somewhere. You can help make everyone better. Gus tells Dr. Singh, God don't want that. He made everyone get sick so they can all go up and be in heaven. And the ones that stay here are the sinners, the bad men like you. Ain't nothing you can do about that. Dr. Singh confides in Gus and tells him, Gus, Abbott and those other men, they are not patient people. I don't know what your father told you about the world, but the world got sick very fast, and we can't stop it. Now, it's very important that you tell me everything you can about where you came from and about your father, especially your father. Back over to Jeppard. He is drunk, walking through Factory Town. Some street punks are playing cards, and they see Jeppard and ask him, what up, Grizzly Adams? You want in on this action, or are you just gonna stand there looking ugly? Jeppard decides to just spit in their face. So they start fighting Jeppard. They start feeding Jeppard punches, and Jeppard is just taking it, absorbing their hits. His face is all puffy now and bleeding. He isn't even fighting back. He has a death wish. The street gang is feeding Jeppard more punches. But they are growing frustrated that Jeppard isn't fighting back. They stomp him a bit more, but the main street gang tough guy says, this ain't no fun. As they walk away, they call Jeppard a crazy fucker. And they leave Jeppard there, lying on the street. Jeppard, lying on the street there, has nothing left to live for. He narrates, don't got nothing left to do. I can just stop now. Nothing left to fight for. Nothing. But as he is lying there, he sees that book Dandy that Gus found. It was in Jeppard's possessions in his bag, and it fell out when he was getting beat up. Jeppard, he's looking at that Dandy book, and he thinks about Gus and that militia camp, and it perhaps gives him some motivation to go on. Back over to Gus and Dr. Singh. Singh is telling Gus that he thought the hybrid kids were a byproduct of the disease which Singh calls H5G9. It hit 8 years ago, so Gus being 9 years old, Singh, he just didn't believe it. And as he was preparing to do surgery and open Gus up and look inside of him, he noticed something. He noticed that Gus wasn't born first. Gus wasn't born at all. Singh wants to remove Gus's shirt. Gus freaks out about this, but Singh tells Gus, Gus, please, it's amazing. Don't you understand? You're amazing. And he opens Gus's shirt and says, no belly button. We see as Singh flings open Gus's shirt, Gus has no belly button. No belly button means that Gus never had an umbilical cord, thus didn't have a traditional birth, thus he wasn't born. He must have been created. So maybe Gus is the key for figuring out this plague, this disease that is inflicting everybody. Issue 9, In Captivity, Part 4 of 6. In the present day, we see Jeppard walking down this empty street. He has left Factory Town, and crows are circling above him. He looks like shit. He is bleeding and beat up, but he just keeps walking. We see in a flashback, when Jeppard was walking with his wife Louise down this very road. They were attacked by some cultists on 2 motorcycles. One of the cultists swinging a mace. Jeppard, he shot one of those motorcycle cultists in the shoulder, causing the cultist to fall off his bike and crash. Now, 2 other cultists on another motorcycle were driving towards Jeppard and Louise, and Jeppard swung his rifle at them, smashing the driver's face and causing the second bike to crash. Now, Jeppard, he destroyed his rifle in the process though, and the other cultist that Jeppard shot in the shoulder, he had since gotten up and grabbed Jeppard's wife, Louise. The cultist with Jeppard's wife tells Jeppard, "We just want the woman. You can walk away." And Jeppard tells the cultist, "Let her go or I'm gonna kill you." The cultist is not going to back down though. Before the cultist can do anything though, he gets shot in the head. Jeppard wonders who shot the cultist. As he didn't do it, his gun is all busted up now. Jeppard looks around and sees that Abbott from the militia camp did the shooting, and Abbott is backed up by 3 other soldiers. This is the first time that Jeppard met Abbott. Abbott tells Jeppard, "Hey man, we're the good guys." Back in the current day, once again, Jeppard, he's continuing to walk down that street. The crows are circling above him, hoping that Jeppard is near death and they can feast on him. But Jeppard yells at the crows, "Not yet, you bastards." Jeppard, he is not dead yet. Back over to poor Gus in the lab. We see Abbott and Dr. Singh looking at Gus through a one-way mirror. Singh wants to investigate Gus further. He is excited about the medical possibilities of getting some answers from Gus. He wants to earn Gus's trust and see what he can learn from Gus. Abbott, he just wants answers now. He tells Singh the army guys upstairs are running low on patience and getting restless, and Singh needs to make something happen down here soon. He needs to produce results, or Abbott says he'll just go in there and rip apart Gus himself, see if he can get some answers that way. Singh goes in to talk with Gus. He tells Gus not to be scared. Singh pleads with Gus that since it appears that Gus was born before the plague, he really needs Gus to tell him everything that Gus knows about his father. And Gus replies, I told you everything I remember. And Dr. Singh explains to Gus that he wants to try hypnotizing him and see if he can help Gus remember things that he may have forgotten. Back over to Jeppard. We continue the flashback of him and his wife in the past. So Abbott, after having just saved Jeppard and Louise, decides to show them their transport vehicle and tell Jeppard and Louise that they've been sweeping the area looking for survivors for the past few weeks, and luckily his group came across Jeppard, as those cultists are nasty pieces of work. And Jeppard asks, "What the hell is the deal with those cultists?" Abbott explains that they are hybrid cultists, and they usually congregate in big cities, but those scouts were out here looking for pregnant women, and they hope to get their hands on the hybrid animal children from those women. I'm sure you've heard the bizarre stories floating around about animal children being born and nonsense like that. Well, as you can imagine in these times, all sorts of fanatics have crawled out of the woodwork just looking for something to grab onto, something to believe in again. And Jeppard asks, "And these freaks believe all this animal baby shit? Christ, this is all so messed up." Abbott then tries to convince Jeppard and Louise to return to his camp with him and the soldiers. And Abbott, he is promising all these things. He promises safety and doctors and food and supplies and other families, and they'll even have a school there. Louise tells Jeppard that she's getting tired of hiding. She just wants her baby to be safe. So Jeppard and his wife decided to take Abbott up on his offer. As soon as they arrived at the military base and exited the vehicle they were in, they realized that Abbott was not exactly being truthful with them. Louise questioned, "Where are all the other people?" Abbott just smiles, and the soldiers hit Jeppard with their guns, and all aim at Jeppard, as Abbott hauls Jeppard's wife Louise away by force, and Louise and Jeppard are screaming each other's names and trying to claw their way back to each other. Back in the current day, Jeppard, he's continuing to walk down that street, and he returned to that building with the prostitutes that we saw him in earlier. And the one prostitute there, Lucy, sees Jeppard, and she tells him, "Hold it," as she's pointing her gun at him. Jeppard's in rough shape, and he's crying, and Lucy says, It's you, isn't it?" And Jeppard says, They took her." Jeppard just hugs this Lucy, and Lucy says, "Shh, it's okay. And Jeppard says, "They took her from me." And Lucy replies, I know, I was there too." So the two of them didn't perhaps recognize each other in their last confrontation in Volume 1, but now they both recognize each other from their time in the militia facility, because apparently Lucy was there as well. Issue 10, In Captivity, Part 5. Dr. Singh puts Gus under the hypnotic trance. He wants to see if he can get some information on Gus's past, maybe clues about Gus's dad, whom Dr. Singh believes maybe created Gus and caused the plague. Singh tells Gus to think of his home and try to go there in his mind and tell him what he sees. So for the next part of the story, we will be going on Gus's journey through his mind he is seeing because of the hypnosis. Gus begins imagining he is in the woods near the cabin that was his home. Singh tells Gus to go inside the cabin. Once inside the cabin, Gus imagines this memory he had of his dad and him reading a book called The Grumpy Owl. It was apparently a favorite of Gus's. Singh asks Gus if his dad had any equipment around, kind of like the equipment he would see in the laboratory here. Did he have any scientific tools or instruments? Gus says no, he didn't have anything like that. And Singh says, "Are you sure?" And Gus replies, "No, that's math and science. He don't teach me that. It's bad and evil. That's how the world got this way." And Singh comments, "Really? Your father said that? Interesting." Gus wants to go back to the memory of him and his dad reading The Grumpy Owl, but Singh continues to push Gus onward though. He wants Gus to remember back when he was a little baby, when him and his parents first came to the woods. Gus says he can't remember that far. Singh thinks that Gus can though. He thinks that Gus can remember things that Gus didn't even know he knew. Singh tells Gus, "Now Gus, you say your mother and father came to the woods before you were born, correct?" Gus says, "Yeah, so?" Singh asks him, "And how old were you when your mother died?" Gus answers, "My mother died when I was being born, but it wasn't my fault. Daddy says it was just God's time to take her up to heaven." Dr. Singh responds, "Were there ever any photographs of her around the cabin? Did your father have any hidden away?" And Gus answers, "Nope, never had no pictures of her, but she was real pretty. He told me so." Singh says, "I'm sure he did, but I seriously doubt this woman ever existed at all." Gus, he takes offense to this and he says, "Shut up! You don't know what you're saying." Dr. Singh apologizes and says, Okay, Gus, I'm sorry. It's just that, well, unlike other hybrids we've seen, you weren't born, not in the traditional sense." Gus to this says, "That's stupid. I was too born. I was born in the woods with my mama and daddy. They was good people and they never did nothing bad." Dr. Singh replies to Gus, "You're right, Gus. Don't be upset. You're right. I was mistaken. Come on. Let's go see your father again. Let's see what he's doing." So they leave that memory and they go to this other memory and see Gus's father. Now we see Gus's father appears to be writing in a book, and Dr. Singh wonders, what was he writing in that book? He asks Gus, was it calculations, numbers, things you would see on my laboratory walls here? Gus says, nothing like that. He was writing the Bible. And Singh asks, you mean copying the Bible into notebooks? And Gus explains, no, God tells my daddy what to write, and my daddy wrote it down. That was his job. Dr. Singh obviously thinks this is pretty messed up. He asks Gus, writing his own Bible? What did he do with this Bible? Gus explains that his daddy taught him the Word of God. And now we see Gus's dad prophesizing word from this made-up Bible of his. Gus's dad says, and he poisoned the waters and inflicted the air they breathed, and they no longer breathed the Holy Spirit, but instead his pestilent breath of pure death. And all the world's sinners withered and rotted on the spot. And God looked down and said, you have sinned, you have lived as evil men, and now you will leave the earth to the good alone. And the good were left to love and not fear him, and to pray, and he blessed these very woods and called it his new Eden. And then little Gus was responding, amen, and his dad would continue, and he blessed the very boy and called him his new Adam. And from his rib a new race would rise up and inherit the world left behind by its rotted evil landlords. And Gus would say, amen. And his dad would continue, and this new race would be good, and this new race would be forever innocent and pure. Amen. Abbott, who is watching this hypnosis journey from the other side of this one-way mirror, comments, the father was completely insane. So everyone thinks Gus's dad is out there, woo! Singh asks Gus where his dad kept this Bible. And Gus explains that his dad kept the Bible in a box of stuff Gus wasn't supposed to touch. Although one day, when Gus's dad was out of the cabin, Gus went to look at that box of stuff. And Singh asks Gus what was in the box. And Gus says, oh, just his book and some extra writing stuff. Gus then sees a picture in that box. And Singh asks, a picture of what? A picture of Gus's mama. So perhaps she did exist. Singh asks Gus, what else is in the box? And Gus says, a map. And Singh wants to see if Gus can read that map. So Gus, in his memory, he's trying to read the map, but he's struggling. He says, it's just lines and words, and I don't know what they mean. Dr. Singh encourages Gus and tells him, you must try to read the map. Please, I know you can do it. Your father taught you well. Please, try. So Gus, he's trying to remember the map. All of a sudden, he sees it. It's a map of Nebraska, and there is an area circled. This is the area where he lived. Long Pine State Wilderness Park. Dr. Singh smiles and tells Gus, thank you, Gus. You did very well. Gus asks if he can go home now, and Singh apologizes and says, oh no. Gus begins crying and says, you promised! And in the next room, Abbott begins talking with Dr. Singh and tells Singh, good work. They are going to prepare a party of men to travel to Nebraska in the morning and see if they can find any clues there by visiting Gus's family's home. For now, though, Gus is going to be thrown back in the kennels with the others. Issue 11, In Captivity, Part 6 of 6. So in the previous issue, we focused on Gus. Now we will focus this issue entirely on Jeppard to close out the volume. We are back in the flashback of when Jeppard's wife was taken from him and Jeppard was being kept in a cage at the militia camp. Jeppard, he is trapped in this cage, and he is saying Louise's name over and over again. Louise, 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 as he shakes the cage. A man walks in. This man's name is Johnny. He is the brother of Abbott. Abbott seems the guy that's running this place. Well, Johnny is kind of his loser brother who is here. So Johnny, he's laid back. He tells Jeppard, whoa, relax, man. It's cool, just relax. Jeppard asks the man, who the F are you? Where's my wife? And Johnny says, I'm Johnny. I don't know where your wife is. You're in the kennels, man. They brought you down here yesterday. I don't really know anything else. They don't tell me much. Jeppard tells this Johnny, Abbott, he's got my wife. She's pregnant. You gotta let me out of here. And Johnny replies, pregnant? Aw, shit, man. I'm really sorry. She's probably in the incubation rooms then. Jeppard asks, incubation? What are you talking about? What the F is this place? Johnny explains, dude, this is a militia camp. Science militia? They're breeding them here so they can cut them up and find a cure for the sick, man. Jeppard to this says, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Johnny explains further, hybrids, man. Animal kids. You mean you haven't seen one yet? Shit, where you been? Jeppard tells him, come on, you don't believe that nonsense, too? Johnny replies, oh, it's messed up all right. I ain't saying it's not, but dude, you gotta check this out. This is gonna blow your mind. I remember the first time I saw one, man. A cat one. I was in a survivor camp up in Michigan, and I couldn't sleep that night, man. Check it out. Johnny shows Jeppard all the other kids, hybrid kids, that are being kept in cages. And Jeppard to this says, oh dear God. So we see all these hybrid kids in these cages behind Johnny. And Johnny says, I know, man, I know. Yeah, man. All the babies born since the sick are like that. It's crazy. And they got doctors and scientists here trying to figure it all out. Jeppard is pleading with this Johnny. You gotta let me out of here, man. I gotta find my wife. Let me out, I'll kill you. Just then, Abbott enters the room and breaks up this conversation. Jeppard yells at Abbott and wants to be taken to his wife. And Abbott tells Jeppard, that's not happening. Abbott tells Jeppard, I'm very sorry for all the deception. Normally we would have just killed you and taken your wife quickly, and that would be that. But after seeing you deal with those cultists, I thought it best to try a different approach. Jeppard just threatens to kill all of them, and Abbott continues, oh, I have no doubt that you would, Mr. Jeppard. That's exactly my point. We think you may end up being just as useful as your wife. But not just yet. And Abbott shuts off the light, leaving Jeppard there in the darkness. Jeppard left in that cage, screaming at Abbott, Abbott, come back here! So the days and the weeks go by, Jeppard trapped in the kennels, kept in darkness. The only person he ever sees is this Johnny, who comes to check in on Jeppard and bring him food. Every time, Jeppard asks to be let out of the cage, and he asks for more information on his wife. Now Johnny, he's pretty sympathetic. He explains that he did some snooping and that Jeppard's wife is in the incubation rooms and she's okay, they haven't done anything to her yet. A few visits later, Johnny brings Jeppard some more food, and Jeppard continues to ask for more information and to be let out of this cage, and Johnny says he can't do anything. He tells Jeppard to eat the food though, keep his strength up. Jeppard tells Johnny to get the F away from him, and Johnny replies, come on man, don't be like that. Jeppard repeats for Johnny to get away from him. And Johnny tells Jeppard, they don't like me talking to you, man. Just hang in there. Now, on a later visit, when Johnny visited Jeppard, we see Johnny got hit in the face a bit, and he has a bump. Jeppard asks Johnny, what the hell happened to you? And Johnny says, Jeppard, it's happening. She's in labor. Well, Jeppard starts freaking out. His wife is in labor. He tells Johnny, you gotta let me out. And Johnny says, man, not this again. You know I can't do that. And Jeppard tells him, yes, you can. You were feeding me my dinner and I attacked you. I got the keys. I knocked you out and escaped. And Johnny says, no, dude. Even if it was an accident, they'd still kill me. Abbott and those guys don't mess around, man. Look what they did when they caught me snooping. Pointing to the injuries on his face. Man, I know it's messed up here, but at least it's safe. It wasn't easy for me to get in. I'm not like a doctor, I'm not a soldier or nothing. Come on, man. Jeppard, pleading with this Johnny, says, Johnny, they do terrible things here. Terrible things. And you might not be doing them, but you're just as bad if you let it happen. My wife is up there, my wife! And she's having my baby. And they're gonna do who knows what. I can't let that happen. You can't let that happen. Please give me the keys, Johnny. Johnny caves and gives Jeppard the keys to the cage he is in. Jeppard, he opens the cage doors and tells Johnny, if there's a good place to hide, you should find it. And Johnny asks, what are you gonna do, man? And Jeppard says, I'm gonna kill everyone. Jeppard is storming through the various labs and he is killing any scientist he comes across. He walks to one of the incubation rooms, incubation room B, and he sees 2 pregnant women there. And Jeppard comments, Jesus. And we see a black woman in the room, and this woman is Lucy, the prostitute we met earlier. She says to Jeppard then, please help us. So this is why at the end of issue 9, when Jeppard and Lucy were hugging, they recognized each other because Lucy was there at this facility as well. And she said to Jeppard, I was there too. So Jeppard, he continues on looking for his wife, and he sees her in an operating room. She is giving birth, and Abbott sees Jeppard and tells his men to take Jeppard. So 3 men charge at Jeppard, and Jeppard is fighting through them. He's punching and kicking his way against the 3 men, taking them all down. Jeppard is now face to face with Abbott, the only man stopping him from getting to his wife. And Jeppard tells Abbott, I'm gonna kill you, motherfucker. And Abbott, who is a relatively slender man, not very muscular, looks like he is not gonna put up much of a fight. But in a subversion of expectations, Abbott is a freaking badass, and he absolutely destroys Jeppard in one-on-one combat. We see Abbott just dodging Jeppard and elbowing him and tossing Jeppard around, just absolutely destroying him in this fight. Jeppard, now crawling on the ground, sees his wife in the next room in labor, and then all he sees is Abbott's foot coming down on his face, stomping him, knocking him out. When Jeppard woke up, he was on the other side of the military's fence, and Jeppard was angry. He was yelling his wife's name, Louise, and Abbott was standing on the other side of that fence. And Abbott told the Jeppard, she's dead, stop it. She died in labor. Your son did too. Shame that. We need more specimens. We're doing important work here. The most important work. And we need more specimens. The human race itself depends on it. Jeppard, crawling on the ground, says, I'm gonna kill you. And Abbott to this replies, oh please, aren't we a little bit past that now, Jeppard? Listen, I'll make you a deal. You have special talents. You find me a specimen, a live one, and I'll give you her body back. How's that sound? That's it, that's all I have to say to you. Goodbye. Maybe we'll see you again, maybe not. And with that, Abbott walks away, leaving Jeppard there, kneeling on the ground, defeated. Back in the current day now, Jeppard, he is healing. He is with the prostitutes in that building that he was in earlier. Lucy, talking to Jeppard, says, take it easy, big man. Don't know where you're coming from, but you sure as hell took a beating along the way. You're gonna need rest. Jeppard, he doesn't care though. He sits up, he puts on his shirt, he is done trying to kill himself. He is going to do something now about the people that wronged him and his wife. And Lucy asks Jeppard, where the hell are you going? And Jeppard walks away and answers, gonna kill everyone. So Jeppard is now going to try and get his revenge on Abbott and all the others in that militia camp. And that is how Volume 2 ends. Alright, so that was Volume 2. I felt it really stepped stuff up from Volume 1. It dialed up the action, dialed up the excitement, it gave us a lot more exploration of the world and established what's going on. We saw a lot of Jeppard's backstory. I mean, his heartbreaking journey of the pre-plague world and then the post-plague world with his wife, and how they got tricked to going to that militia camp, and then Jeppard trying to break out of that camp to get back to his wife, but she dies, and this abbot beats Jeppard up and tosses him out, and then Jeppard ends up trading in Gus to get his dead wife's body so he can fulfill his promise to her to bring her back home, in a very gut-wrenching moment when it's revealed his dead wife was in the duffel bag all along. Really good stuff with Jeppard in this volume. Really helped us learn and love Jeppard and want to see more from him. And to parallel that with Gus's story was pretty interesting. Gus in this sort of um, concentration camp with these hybrid animals, with these scientists doing these scary experiments, and seeing Gus's journey dealing with all that was very compelling as well. So I thought this was a really good volume, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Thank you all for watching, and I will be back next week with Sweet Tooth Volume 3.